Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 14th now in our monthly workshop series on the ForeFlight EFB. My name is Mike Jesch. I'm a flight instructor based in Southern California, and I fly big jets for work, some of the time at least, but this, in the little airplanes with these little magical EFBs, this is where the fun really is, and this is what I really enjoy to do and talk about and teach and learn. So just a couple quick notes before we get started. As usual, if you are interested in wings credit, if you're watching a recording on SocialFlight or on YouTube, there will be instructions contained therein on how to get your credit. A short quiz you'll have to do, and then we'll get you the credit within a week or so of that. Brian promises a deep dive into all the ins and outs of the ForeFlight Track Log. That's going to be about the first half hour or so of the program. And then we're going to segue on to a special guest tonight coming to us directly from ForeFlight itself. So stick around for that. You are definitely going to want to be around for that one. So come on in, Brian. What do you got for us? The captain is in the house.
Hey, Mike. How you doing? Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm really thrilled that we do have Ryan McBride from ForeFlight on tonight. I remember watching some training videos from ForeFlight when I was first trying to figure it out, and watching him teach those, and I was impressed with how articulate he was. So we're glad to have him on. He's going to talk about some new and exciting things that ForeFlight has and what's coming up with ForeFlight. So I will leave the new and improved stuff to him when he comes on in a little bit. But first, I'd like to thank, we have a new helper behind the scenes, Alicia Sykes. I've been working with her at the airlines for many years. We got Mike Jesch, as you met, Bob Mader, and James McKay. We're all behind the scenes. They will be helping answer questions, and they would probably be better presenting than I would be, but I'm here for my pretty face. And as you can see, I outcast all of them. No, I think we're all on pretty equal footing. So they are the heart and soul of this program, because we call it a workshop, not a webinar, and that's because you're asking questions and they're answering them. So we really appreciate that. We also look forward to your input. If you have a great tip or trick, submit it in the Q&A, and if it's a different way of doing things, we like to share that. We can benefit through all our collective knowledge. But we're lucky tonight again to have Ryan on from ForeFlight, and I look forward to what he has to tell us about all kinds of new and exciting things. So Mike, Alicia, Bob, and James, thank you guys very much. Without getting too deep into the weeds, I will just jump into the track log that we're going to talk about here tonight, and we'll talk to Ryan McBride in about 30, 45 minutes.
Let's do it.
So thank you guys. Start typing and we'll see what we got. The track log is what I want to talk about tonight. It almost deserves a lot more than what we can give it. So when Mike says I'll do a deep dive, that's it may be a dive, but it might be a shallow dive. But in any event, I'd like to talk about it because a lot of people don't quite understand what you can do with it, why it's there.
Just so long as it's not a belly flop.
It might be a belly flop. That'll empty the pool. Want to thank everybody who's given us gifts. We don't get money from these people. Our money is from you guys that donate to us, but these people, these entities have been so kind as to either help us promote our program or give giveaways, and we've got some good giveaways tonight. I'd also would be remiss if I didn't thank the FAA for providing the platform to let you know about this, the FAA Wings program, but not only that, but to give you Wings credit and give you in furtherance of your continuing education. I really like the Wings program. If you're not doing your flight review that way, I encourage you to do it that way, to get 3 ground and 3 flight sessions. This counts as one of those 6 items, one of the 3 ground, and 3 of those a year, and then 3 flight sessions with an instructor that will sign you off, and you got a flight review done. So anyway, thank you to the FAA for allowing us to do that. We got some great giveaways. ForeFlight has generously donated a that's easy for me to say, a Pro Plus prescription subscription plan for, it's a $240 gift certificate for the equal value of a Pro Plus. Gold Seal again gave us 2 more lifetime courses. That's a $300 value for that course. You can choose private or instrument. 1-year membership to NAFI. We got a logbook, an autographed copy of Dad's book, Illustrated Guide to Flying, and of course ground school access to the finer points for 1 year. Again, my disclaimer is we are not officially affiliated with ForeFlight, although Ryan is. We don't receive anything from ForeFlight. We're just experienced flight instructors and ForeFlight users, just sharing our knowledge and experience with you, and sharing the information we get from you. The practices we talk about, again, are solely ours. You can take what you like, leave what you don't, and make sure that you follow the FARs to the highest degree possible and maintain your highest level of safety. Once again, I mentioned that we do take tips. We do really appreciate that. We're spending thousands of dollars on the Zoom platform so that we have enough room for all of you to attend and bring you an equipment to bring you this thing. Even though this program is not as professional as some of the ones you see, you get what you pay for, so we're not charging for it. But if we receive more than our costs, of course, we donate those to the 99s, AOPA, or educational foundations that give scholarships. So you can see that on our website. I truly appreciate all of you who've contributed. It really helps us keep going. The Zoom renewal actually was yesterday. I was at odds as to whether or not to renew Zoom. You're going to see when I move my iPad around, it's a little jumpy. There are certain things about Zoom we don't like, but it's a platform everybody knows, and at this point we'll stick with it until we refine our own. Again, you can see I'm showing off, but that's how much the platform is for Zoom. So in any event, moving on, if you go to iPad Pilot News, you can see that ForeFlight Mobile is compatible. You can also subscribe to ForeFlight's blog and their updates to get notifications on your phone and see that we are in fact okay to go to iOS and iPadOS 17.5.1. Definitely don't update your iOS until ForeFlight gives you the all clear, meaning that they've tested the app with the latest iOS to make sure it's compatible, especially right before a flight. You don't want to do that. So again, tonight we'll talk about the track log. We'll hear from Ryan McBride, and then we'll do our giveaways. So starting out with the track log. What is the track log? Well, first of all, to create a track log, obviously ForeFlight needs access to GPS data. This data can be obtained from the device's built-in GPS receiver, if you have one, or an external Bluetooth or Wi-Fi receiver. It is available with all ForeFlight subscription plans, so no matter which one you have, it is available for you. It's your option whether you use it. So you can record flights using the GPS. It's a great debriefing tool if you're a flight instructor, or if you're practicing on your own and you want to see how you did, how your patterns look, how your ground reference maneuvers were, or just see anything about your flight. You can share it with friends and family. You can view your track, or you can send it to the logbook and save it for posterity, or use it to help you remember what you did and help you log. How many approaches did I shoot? How many patterns did we do? The track log is a great way to kind of keep a reminder for what you're going to do. It will automatically record, or you can manually start and stop it with a button on the map. To access that option, and I'll show you on the iPad, but to access the track logs, you'll go to the More and then Track Logs, and that'll bring up the track log page, which we're going to examine shortly. There are 5 ways to record a track log. You can, it'll start automatically if you have it set to do that with ForeFlight. You can, with ForeFlight's GPS, you can do it manually with ForeFlight's GPS, so you can set it to just start and stop when you want it to, and I'm going to show you that. You can save a breadcrumb, like if you are tracking breadcrumbs and you have that turned on and you see one of those green paths on your map, you can actually tap on it, save it as a track log later. The 4th way is that you can record with a flight data recorder, or like an external GPS or AHRS device. Flight data recorders are like external devices that have GPS and record them, and they also have an AHRS attitude heading reference system. I use that term loosely because it's not exactly like, it doesn't have an IRS or a gyro in it, but it does record that kind of flight data. The other way is to record a track log like a Garmin 1000 and a G1000, and you can download directly from a G1000 to ForeFlight's track logs. So you can save your G1000 track logs to that, and we'll show you that as well. The priority logic is something that I think it's important to understand. As I was studying this, I'm like, okay, how is it, if I got all these GPSs in the airplane? In fact, I had a friend call me, he texted me from over somewhere in New Mexico said I have 8 active GPSs on the airplane, and not one of them are worth a darn because there was some GPS jamming going on. I think it was out of Nellis. In any event, watch those NOTAMs, because all the GPSs in the world on your airplane aren't going to work if they've got the GPS jammed at that time. So I am a fan of having a GPS or a VOR backup when that happens. The connecting to multiple devices of the same type or installed portable devices, there's a priority order that ForeFlight will use. So when you're connected to portable and installed devices, ForeFlight will use the GPS, attitude, and barometric data from those devices by default from its internal device. But if it's connected to Garmin and Dynon installed avionics simultaneously, the Garmin's GPS, attitude, and barometric data are used from those devices. Basically, the order of operations is kind of in this order. If it sees these devices installed or external devices, and then of course finally it will use the iOS internal GPS. If you have an iPad that's capable of cellular, it has cellular capability, then it has a GPS in it. But if your iPad does not have cellular capability, it does not have a GPS in it. So you can scratch that last one off the list. If the, I'm gonna move on from there. You can see what's connected by going to the devices. So tap on more and then devices, and you can see these data blocks like a tile for what is connected. You'll see it's connected, and sometimes you need to be sure you enable them, and you can tap info and get more settings from there. This is what it would look like with a Sentry Plus device connected to your iPad. The accuracy window at the bottom, if you have that turned on the instrument panel, will tell you the accuracy of the device you're using. But right above that accuracy, it'll tell you that there's where it's getting the GPS information, basically, as you can see right here. That if there's nothing there, nothing listed up top here, that's how you can tell that the GPS data is provided by the internal iOS GPS processor. So if nothing is there, then it's using the internal GPS for the iPad. Okay, so let's go to the iPad, take a look at that, and let's see. I will, so you're seeing my iPad, I hope. One thing I wanted to point out, I have in my notes here, just to show real quickly, is the the Oshkosh ForeFlight, I'm sorry, I'm doing 5 things at once here, and I'm usually busy breathing. The Oshkosh NOTAM that comes out, I just want to show you where to get that, because Oshkosh is coming up. So if you go and tap on More, and then go to, we go to our documents. I always had it hidden before, but go to Documents tab, and then in the ForeFlight Drive, you can scroll down and you'll see it. It's right here. You can also go online and get it, but it's in ForeFlight already, the Oshkosh 2024 notice. I just wanted to let you know if you're flying to Oshkosh. We talked about that and recorded it last week, which was the first Monday in July, and a lot of people were signing on, and we saw that. So we just did a bonus ForeFlight workshop for those who didn't quite get the memo on that it's the second Monday this month. So we did a thing on flying to Oshkosh, and you'll see a little bit more detail on that if you want to go back and watch the recording of that on our YouTube channel. You'll get a link to the YouTube channel in an email after this. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. But just to be ready, I'm going to go ahead and open. I have a folder I've created for ForeFlight Workshop, and the one tonight, I'm just going to have the ForeFlight users, the mobile guide, pilot's guide, opened up in case we need it. So I'm going to go ahead, and now I'm going to go to the maps page, and you can see that the hurricane's a little bit east of us, so thankfully I don't think I'll be losing power tonight, but it seems like on most of the workshop nights we seem to get a lot of weather here, but we lucked out tonight. So for track logs, we're going to go to the More and then Track Logs, and you can see it right here. You can also see it right here in my tabs window, because that was the last one I accessed from the More menu, and so that's why it's still right here. So just as a quick aside, if I went to aircraft, that now is right here on the tab, and if I go back to the More menu, Track Logs, you can see is not there. That's because it's the last one I went to. So I'm going to go to Track Logs, and you can see here's a list of all the track logs that I have. None are selected, so I don't see one. But I'm going to go ahead and show you so we've got the list here of track logs that I've done. It also shows you the departure city and the arrival city. It's estimating that. You can edit that if you need to. You can also see the source that it came from. Like this one was recorded off the Sentry Plus.
Brian,
Yes.
Brian, I hate to interrupt, but your screen just went, your ForeFlight screen just went dark on everybody.
Yeah, it just turned nighttime.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah, it's dark out now, right?
There you go. Now you got it.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for letting me know. You can see the iPhone, you can see the device that recorded it, you can see the aircraft call sign, and I'm going to tell you in a little bit where that comes from. And then you can see there's a little symbol next to the aircraft call sign or N number that looks like a book, because it's a book. That means there's an associated logbook entry. So real quickly, I just want to show you, if we were to go to the maps, and you can see I've got this record log right here, this button right here. If you don't see the record button on your iPad, I'm going to show you how to get it there. You want to go to More, and we're going to go to Settings. And then in here in the filter, I'm just going to type in Start Stop, because I know it'll be there. You can also type in Track Log, but you'll get more things. But right here, you'll see there's a switch, Enable Start Stop Control, and I have it turned on. And if I turn it off, you'll see it disappears off the screen. If I turn it back on, it's on the screen. I'll toggle it. You can kind of see it coming on and off. The auto start stop feature, I have turned off. When ForeFlight senses that you've taken off, it'll automatically start a track log recording, and it'll stop when it senses that you've landed. I'll talk a little bit more detail about what the information it needs to determine start and stop. But if you are also going to fly like several legs with a landing in between and you want to record it all as one track log, then you want to disable auto start and stop and do it manually, and you can manually start recording. So I'm going to just clear that. I'm going to hit record right now. You can see that the timer is moving over here. With that timer going, the flight timer, that indicates to you, that and the blue button indicates to you that it is in fact recording a track log. The backup would be to have it dropping breadcrumbs as you fly, because you can also convert the breadcrumbs to a track log if you need. The best way to ensure that it's happening is to leave ForeFlight open, leave the app open. If you close it, it might stop recording. If another GPS takes over, it might stop using one device and use another, but it will generally stick with the one it started with. And then if you start recording on your iPad using the iOS processor, and then you turn on your master switch, start your engine, get your avionics on, and get that going, it will stick with ForeFlight. I don't think it's going to switch over, and Ryan can correct me on that later, but I believe it's going to stick with the one that it started with, and you may not get the recording from the device that you want. So I'm going to stop recording right here. And you can see I've any recording that's more than a few seconds, it will turn it into a track log. And now I'm going to go back to my track logs and look for the one I just recorded. And it's right here. Notice it took the closest airport to me, and it started and stopped there because I didn't move anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And you can see the GPS position moved around a little bit, but since I was sitting here stationary, there's not much there. It's selected the aircraft tail number, and what that's based on is basically if you have ADS ownship detected during flight, then it's going to use that ownship aircraft and fill in the N number here. The second thing it will use if you don't have that is the track log start time will compare to the planned flights in your flights page. So if you have a flight in here that was planned around the time that you started recording, it's going to grab the N number for that flight. If you don't have a flight in there and you don't have an ADS-B out, then it will just use the default aircraft, which is what was used here. This is the N number of my aircraft. That's set as the default aircraft to be used for flight planning. So that's the one it chose. If you don't want to keep these, you can see also there's you see a logbook symbol there next to my N number, and you might think, well, how did it log it already in the logbook? No, it's associated with a logbook entry because there's a draft of that track log in my logbook already. If I delete the draft, if I save it, that symbol will stay there. If I delete the draft, that symbol will go away, and I'll show you that proof of that if I go to More and then Logbook. you can see this one right up here on top here is the one that it recorded, and I don't want it. So obviously I'm not going to keep that. You can delete that by just swiping left when you select that, and then tap on delete, confirm that you want to delete it, and you can see now it's not in my logbook as a draft anymore. All these are drafts. I'm a little bit behind. I have 30 drafts that I need to okay or not, and you see there are some duplicates in here. So I'm going to go back to the track log, and you'll see that when we look at that entry that I just recorded, that track log, it no longer has that logbook next to the N number. In other words, there's nothing associated with a logbook entry on that. But just like deleting the draft for the logbook, I can delete track logs as well, and I can just swipe to the left and tap on delete, and then confirm it. The other thing you can do if you get so many of these and you say, well, I know that I flew out of Denton, where is that track log? You can just type in the filter and you can type KDTO for that airport, and here are all the ones out of that airport only. So you can filter it down by airport if you're looking for a specific one as well. Another thing that's noteworthy is if it does in fact record the wrong N number because you're flying a rental aircraft and it used your default number, N number, then you can actually go to that track log. This in fact was a drive from a hotel to a restaurant, but I was playing with the Century Plus at the time, so it tells you that that's what it recorded, but it used the wrong N number. So let's say the N number of the car was something else. You can go over here to the info button, and anything in blue you can edit. So you can edit the start and end airports if it got it wrong. It's estimating based on where you started recording and what's near you. And the tail number you can edit as well. It shows you the pilot name, if there was a flight associated with it, what device it was recorded on. I saw my iPad flash, but it looks like it came back. The distance of the flight, and some more information. Yep, there it is. Hang on. Come right back. And I added a note that I was going to add later, but I put this is a drive from dinner to dinner from my hotel, and blah, blah, blah. I can make anything I want. I can edit the notes like that, and then they stay there. So once again, the info, anything in blue you can edit and change on that track log as well. You also see there's a send to button here, and you can tap on that and you can send this track log via email to somebody. You can open the KML file, which is in any kind of mapping program that is compatible with KMLs like Google Earth. So I'll just show you that. If I tap this open KML in, and here's some compatible files, you can go to Cloud Ahoy, which I'll show you shortly, or Google Earth. I'll tap on Google Earth and it's going to generate the track log, and voila. This one was a drive. That's kind of boring, so I'm going to go back to ForeFlight, and I'm going to delete this track log because I have no need for that. And I'm going to look at maybe another, more interesting one. This was a flying lesson that we did. I did with somebody. So I'm going to send that to Google Earth. Open KML in. It prepares it. Send it to Google Earth, and it's going to load it up. And there it is. Once it's in Google Earth, you can do a lot of fun things. If you're familiar with Google Earth, you can check out and see the altitudes. You can look at different parts of it, but you can also send it to Cloud Ahoy, which I'll show you shortly, and do a full debrief. It depends on how you want to look at it. It's just showing you some different options. So I'm going to go back to ForeFlight. And so on this track log graph on the map, it defaults to the aeronautical map. Can't change that, but let's say you zoomed in on part of it and you wanted to fit it back to the screen. That's this on the map page, the zoom to route, but here it's fit to screen. So you just tap the route, it fits to screen right there. And you can also have this graph of the flight of two pieces of data. In this case, we have altitude and speed selected. The altitude is blue, the speed is green. This was recorded on an iPhone, so it's kind of jumpy. It's not all that accurate. I think it records in one piece of data point per second, and we can choose different parameters for that graph. We can, I'm going to turn my camera off now. It might make it bigger for you guys, I don't know. But you can choose pitch and bank if it is available and was recorded. Because it was recorded on an iPhone, we don't have pitch and bank, and G-load you can only get on a Sentry Plus. So here I have this route that was recorded on a Sentry Plus. This was me walking around not knowing that the Sentry Plus was turned on, but in any event, you can see at this point you can record pitch and bank, and you can put those two on there because it recorded them. I don't know, yeah, there's G-load. I apparently stayed pretty close to, well, 1.5 Gs. It was a very short recording, so it's probably where I dropped the thing or something, who knows. But you can see you can choose what data you're comparing on here. You can choose altitude or speed and G-load if you want. Just choose any two you want and compare them. So this is overlaid on top of the map. If you wanted to hide it, you just simply tap right here. This is the graph button. You can hide the graph if you want. So if you don't see the graph, you can tap right here and you'd see the graph. The other thing you can do is you can play back this in 3D. This is not going to be a fun one to do, but let's try another flying lesson we did. You can see this is all taxiing right here. And obviously, I don't want to see all the taxiing, but you can pinch and zoom on this section also. The visible section that we see here is what's blue on the map right now. So there's the taxiing. Here's the takeoff and climb right here. And I'm just going to say, I just want to see the climb out. The blue is altitude, and we climbed up to, looks like about 2,500 feet. I just want to see the climb portion of it is right here. And that's what's selected on the map right here is the climb portion. As you drag, now I can just drag the whole thing with two fingers, and you can see that same length of section just follows along the entire flight. Say I want to see these two steep turns here. So I'm going to kind of put this on the screen and pinch and expand it out to where that's all I see on there is those two steep turns. And we can evaluate how well we held altitude and airspeed during those steep turns. It's a very good debriefing tool, but even better than this would be to send it to Cloud Ahoy, which is, I believe ForeFlight bought Cloud Ahoy, and now they own it, but it's a great debriefing tool. I'll hit the send to, and I'm going to send that KML file to Cloud Ahoy instead, and I'm going to go ahead and we could fill out the pilot and tail number and who the student is, and I'm just going to leave that, but I'm going to hit import, and we've got the flight, and then we would go to it's still waiting, it's still uploading it. You could debrief the flight here. I'm going to go ahead and click wait. I don't know how long this will take. So Mike mentioned earlier I think he records in Cloud Ahoy, and then you can send that to ForeFlight as a track log, or vice versa. You can record on ForeFlight, send that track log to Cloud Ahoy, and then debrief your flight. This is an excellent tool. It starts out with a tutorial, but then here's the 3D version of this flight I just sent there, and that was my drive to dinner, wasn't it? So we sent the wrong, it wasn't a very exciting one to send, but you could debrief it here in Cloud Ahoy at that point. That's weird. I was on this flight. Send to KML in and Cloud Ahoy. Import. That's interesting that it should. I think I had the wrong one selected. In any event, you can send it to there. I could do a whole lesson on Cloud Ahoy, but you can do a wonderful debriefing in Cloud Ahoy. Great, looking at steep turns, it kind of breaks down the maneuvers. It can tell what you've been doing. It's very smart. Slow flights, steep turns, stalls. It knows everything you've been doing fairly well. Yeah, that's not really the whole thing. So I'm obviously doing something wrong here, but we're going to not dwell on that. Back to the chart here. If I wanted to look at this flight, a really neat feature if you wanted to fly this in 3D is to hide the graph and then click on this 3D button right here, and it's going to show you your flight in 3D. Now you can look at the whole thing in 3D by pinching and zooming and swiping and looking at it. But then you can also fly it. And which perspective do you want? Do you want like a view from behind the aircraft or a view from the cockpit? And then hit play. So once I hit play, I can choose what speed I want. Now this is just taxiing out. There's nothing fun about that. So let's fast forward to part of the flying here. And this is a view from the cockpit, the nose of the airplane, and here's a view from like a chase plane behind the airplane. And it's going to take a second to get there. We're toward the end of the flight, so I'm going to put it up here in the middle. And then I've totally confused it by now. I'm just going to close this and we'll come back to it again. Let's see. 3D, play. And this is the taxiing out part. And I can kind of scrub this and speed. We're doing our run up. And now we're taking off and climbing out. And I can just play this. This is 10 times normal speed, 20 times. And every time I click this, it goes through a different speed. And there is real time. That's 1 time normal speed. And you can kind of watch the maneuvers. There's 3 times normal speed, 5 times. And while you're doing that, you can click on the layers here, and there's 2 things you can choose, airports and obstacles, and you can have them on or off while you're watching this playback. It's kind of fun, kind of cool to see. You can do a flight in a simulator, watch it over again, and see what it looks like on that route, look at the terrain and everything. But this was just another way you can utilize the track log. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And let's see, there's a whole list of them. I'm looking at what I've covered here, show and hide the graph. So the track log, so another thing you can do is, let's say you don't want this whole thing. Like I showed you the entire track log and you saw the taxiing and everything, and you don't want that on there. You can edit the track log. So I'm going to put the graph back up by pushing this button right here, click on that. And let's say I don't want this whole taxi portion in this track log. So I'm going to click on edit, and I don't see edit. What am I missing? You guys see it?
Just tap in the profile view and put where you want it to start. I think if you just tap there, yeah, you get that bar, and then you can put it there, and then you have the edit button in the lower right corner.
Oh, there's okay. So yeah, got to get something selected first. Thank
Exactly.
you. Yeah. Edit showed up right here. So you tap on edit. Now from this point, you can drag the edges. You can clip the beginning, and you can say, well, after we started our descent, I don't want any of that. I can clip that. So you can edit the edges like that. Or another way to find the beginning, let's say I want the whole thing, but I want to keep the end of it, but I just want to start right here. I can kind of put my tap in here. Oh, before I hit edit, I can tap in here. Like I said, I can tap in here, put it where I want to start. Let's say it's right there. Then tap on edit. Well, it went away. So I know there's a way to, there it is. Okay. I'm going to put it right where I want, and you can say I want the recording or the track log to start here. So I'll click on start here. And boy, it just puts it right there. Just another way to precisely put the beginning or end where you want it. And you can say, well, I want to stop here. I don't want the taxi in. And then I click done, and there's your new track log. You can only clip the ends. You can't split one into 2 track logs. The only way to do that would be to stop recording and then start again while you're doing it. And you can't merge track logs together either. The only thing that you can do really is manually record, and it will keep recording for a while after. If you keep it open and keep it recording, it'll record your ground stop. If you have it on automatic, it's going to stop the recording when it senses that you've landed. So the other way to do it is to have a breadcrumb recorded. I believe ForeFlight will continue to record for the breadcrumbs for 4 hours after the last time. So it will keep it going as long as you keep it recording. I'm sorry, the track log will keep going for 4 hours after the last stop. Let's see, the track log to the, so the other thing I wanted to show you is if you wanted to send this to somebody, if you hit the send to button and you were to click email, it gives you 2 options. You can send a web link or a KML file. If you were to go to ForeFlight on the web, and I'm going to go there momentarily here. Let's see if I can get that up here. And I'm going to share that. If I'm on ForeFlight on the web, then you can go to track logs right here. you can see all your track logs, and I can find the one I want to send. Let's say it's this one, and I can now download it by tapping the three-dot menu there. Click on download or share, but I want to download. It gives you 4 choices. And the 4 choices are basically KML filtered, which is going to be, it's filtering it to 1 data point every second, or it could be KML full. And if you're using a Sentry Plus, it's going to be recording 5 times every second, and you'll get that full, highly granular recording of the track log. The GPX option is the other one that it can send, and that's just basically a format to share and store a GPS file with like Google Maps or something that can read a GPX file. And then a CSV, obviously, this would just be, and I'll go ahead and download that. That just would be a spreadsheet of that track log. And to show you what that looks like, I'll just go ahead and open that. And here it is. It's basically a data file of the lat long and here's a timestamp. It's just a spreadsheet of that whole flight. And it's a lot of data points, but you can go in here and see the altitudes and climb. As you scroll through it, you can see the data changes. Airspeeds, altitudes, time, lat long, and so on. If you're using a Sentry Plus for that recording, you'll also have pitch and bank information stored in there to really do some really granular analyzation if you wanted to do so. In any event, you have the different formats that you can get only from doing the track logs on the computer like that. If you were to go ahead and share it, it sends a link. You can copy that link and then paste it into an email. And I believe the recipient can choose which format to download. The track log in the logbook, you can actually see a little bit differently. If you can actually associate more than one track log with a logbook entry. I'm going to go back to the iPad, and you can see that if I go to, like right here, I'm looking at the track log, but I've also got the menu, the list of all the track logs here. And I was watching one of the outstanding videos on this that ForeFlight has to offer, and I noticed that they had the track log full screen without that menu. Well, I figured out how they did that, and if you go to More and go to Logbook, and you go to one of your entries that has a track log on it, then you can click on that track log, and lo and behold, you've got full screen on that track log here. And you can use it and look at, obviously this is a glitch when you see a dip like that. Obviously I did not go from 2,500 feet down to 0 and back up to 2,500 feet in a few seconds. So obviously there's a dropped data point in there. But that's the way you can look at it in the logbook. You can also associate more than one track log in a ForeFlight logbook entry. So you can add and change track logs here and edit that in the ForeFlight logbook entry as well. So you can, if you have several legs that all go on one logbook entry, you can put all the track logs in one, or you can use them as separate logbook entries as well. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, that there's some interesting notes and good notes in the ForeFlight user guide on the track log, and that is the important notes and warnings. If a track log with an external Wi-Fi GPS, ForeFlight should remain open. If you're using an external GPS for the entirety of the flight, GPS data can't be accessed via Wi-Fi while ForeFlight is inactive. I think they've made some improvements on that from what I understand, but just want to be careful about that. A change to the GPS source can result in erratic data as well. And I just pulled these notes because I think they speak for themselves, and they're good highlights to go over. The Wi-Fi only iPad, in other words, you don't have cellular capability. They do not have GPS and cannot use GPS data from a hotspot enabled iPhone either. So you can't hook up your iPhone. If you're trying to decide which iPad to get, and you think, I don't need to buy one with cell service because I can just make a hotspot with my phone, well, you can, but you're not going to get the GPS data that way, just the internet.
Hey, Brian, I got a question on that. On that first note there about that ForeFlight needs to remain open for the entirety of the flight. Does that mean that the iPad screen has to be turned on, or is it okay to put it to sleep just with ForeFlight running in the background?
Yeah, I wanted to test that because I understand you can put it to sleep and it will continue to run for some period of time, but you might sacrifice if you're using, for example, you open another application that uses the GPS, it will, ForeFlight will defer the GPS and give the other application the GPS. Like if you accidentally open Google Maps and you wants the GPS, then ForeFlight will stop recording the track log. Uh, Best bet is to leave it open if you're using ForeFlight to record. I would leave, like sometimes I'll do that with my phone, I'll leave it on, but I'm using my iPad for different things. I might swap back and forth. So the answer is it might stop recording. It depends on what you're doing in the interim. But if you just like put your iPad to sleep, you will have, I think, 15 minutes and then it's going to stop recording, if I remember correctly from the manual.
I know when I'm recording a Cloud Ahoy log, tap my phone and start the recording. As I'm done with my run up, I taxi out to the runway and then I turn the phone off. And usually I don't use it on the remainder of the flight. And I just let that be my recorder. And then I'll use my iPad with ForeFlight on it for looking at charts and whatever else I need to do while I'm flying.
And that's a good technique. I think everything I need is in ForeFlight, so I typically leave it open for the entire flight. But that is a good technique to just start Cloud Ahoy. The best technique is to have a Sentry Plus or an external device that records, on board. So if you're recording with a Sentry Plus, it will record it on board the Sentry Plus. You could shut down your iPad, your battery could die. You're still going to get that track log full recording in the database on the Sentry, and you can download that into ForeFlight later.
Nice.
So, valid question. Another important, if the flight timer is not active, and I showed you that, if the flight timer is not active, then ForeFlight's not recording a track log. And that basically is this right here, this flight timer. So right now, this flight timer is not active, so I am not recording a track log. If you see that flight timer going, it's recording a track log. So let's see, I'll go back to this. Once a track log has stopped, it cannot be manually resumed. Additionally, track logs cannot be merged, and I said that earlier. So these are just notes that I pulled out from the book. To record multiple legs with stops exceeding 15 minutes as a single track log, disable automatic recording and then manually stop and start. That's what I said before. If you have the automatic start and stop, it's going to stop after 15 minutes or when it senses a landing. ForeFlight can record track logs independently of the Stratus flight data recorder and the Sentry as well. So importing flights from the Stratus may result in duplicate track logs. So if you use your iPhone or your iPad and a Stratus and a Sentry, you might have 4 track logs of that same flight. Oh, big warning. When a track log is deleted, it cannot be restored. Track logs deleted on one device will be removed from other devices on the account as well. So if you delete it on your iPad and think, oh shoot, I want to go get it from my phone, I guess if they're offline in airplane mode, it might still be there. Note, track logs cannot be shared in a format that will allow them to be imported to another ForeFlight account. In other words, I can't put your track log in my ForeFlight. I can't put my track log in your ForeFlight. Okay, next we'll talk, I'd like to introduce Ryan McBride. He's an aerospace leader and pilot with over a decade of experience. I bet this was written longer ago. He may even be pushing 2 decades experience solving complex aerospace problems through user-centered design. And he is passionate about fostering communities and building tools that make aviation safer, easier, more enjoyable. Ryan, welcome. I truly am appreciative of you joining us here tonight and telling everybody who's watching right now all fun and exciting things about ForeFlight. I've enjoyed watching your videos, your training videos as well. I wish you were still doing those.
Hey, thanks, Brian. It is so good to be here with you and the crew and everyone who's joined the webinar. Super excited. Thank you so much for inviting us to chat with your amazing community you've built here. Really excited to talk about some new features in ForeFlight. So how about we dive right into it?
All right, sounds good.
Cool. So yeah, good evening to everyone. My name's Ryan. I'm the head of community at ForeFlight. My email is on the screen there. If you have any questions about ForeFlight in the future, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm a private pilot based in Chicago, and I've been at ForeFlight. I joined the company originally, actually, in November of 2013, so a little over 10 years. When I joined, the company was about 20 people, and we're close to 500 now. So we've grown quite a bit, and that growth is due to just the tremendous customer base that we have, which we're so fortunate to have. And I'm super excited to be talking to you today about what's new in ForeFlight Mobile. There's always something new, right? We ship new features in ForeFlight pretty much every month on the month. And so today I kind of wanted to do a review. I wanted to go through all the major releases we've had up through this part of the year. That's starting with 16.1, which came out in January, 16.2 in February. Just after the February release, we launched a new product on a new platform. We call it ForeFlight Voyager. It's an augmented reality application for the Apple Vision Pro. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about that, why we're so excited about it. We followed that up with 16.3 in March, zero point 0.4 in April, zero point 0.5 in May, zero point 0.6 was our most recent release in June. We're going to go through all of those things today in the next 45-ish minutes. And then I'd like to show you some new stuff, some stuff that isn't released yet, but that we're pretty excited about. And we thought this would be a great opportunity to chat with you all this evening and share some first glimpses of some new stuff we've been working on. If you're not familiar with ForeFlight, the company was founded back in 2007 by two gentlemen, Tyson Wise and Jason Miller. Tyson and Jason met online through some aviation discussion forums, and 2007 was an important year. That was the year that Apple introduced the iPhone for the first time. And Tyson and Jason immediately saw the potential this device could have for improving productivity and safety for pilots. And so they launched ForeFlight Mobile. It actually wasn't even called ForeFlight Mobile originally. The first version of the application was called My METAR, and the ForeFlight name kind of came up a little bit later. And the first version of the app was very simple. You could put an airport code into it, and it would spit out a METAR. That was version 1. We've come a long way since then. We're headquartered in Austin, Texas, though we also have offices in Houston, in Portland, Maine, and we have a large engineering office in Odense, Denmark as well. Over 1/3 of our 500 employees are pilots. And in 2019, ForeFlight was acquired by the Boeing company. So we now operate as an independent subsidiary of Boeing. Specifically, we are within the Boeing Global Services business unit. For those who are familiar with ForeFlight, you know we build next-gen planning and flight deck apps. And we're all about bringing high utility and productivity to the cockpit. What you might not know is we serve a lot more than just general aviation. We serve all the different markets in aviation, from general to business, commercial aviation, even defense. ForeFlight is used by a huge amount of different types of pilots, or in the software world, we call them personas, types of people that might use our product. And so we take it very seriously when we design the product, when we think about how we're laying things out, the types of functionality that we're bringing to the product. We think about all those different personas, all the different types of pilots, and what each one of them might need. I'm going to jump right into the releases this year. And so we're going to start with the January release. That was the first release of the year. That was ForeFlight Mobile 16.1. I want to highlight something about this release. As of ForeFlight 16.1 in January, ForeFlight requires iOS 16 and up in order to get updates. You can use older versions of iOS with ForeFlight Mobile, and you'll continue to get charts and data and things. But if you want new features, you'll need to be on at least a minimum of iOS 16. Assuming you've updated to 16.1, you're going to see a couple of new things in the application. The first one is some time settings in Logbook. So for those of you who are using ForeFlight Logbook, you know that you have a total time display here on your Logbook entry. We got some feedback from customers that they wanted a little bit more granularity in the format of that time. And so if you scroll down now in Logbook and you go to Settings, under the Settings view in Logbook, there's a new area called Entry Time Format. And you can go into there and you can select two different formats of decimals, as well as an hour and minute format as well. So you could select a different format here. And when you do that, that format will now be reflected on the main Logbook entry screen. So a pretty minor thing, but something that was actually, we had a lot of feature requests for. And so we included that in the first release of the year. Speaking of formats, another request we got was for different coordinate formats throughout the application. When you're using the map in ForeFlight and you tap anywhere on the map, you'll get a view that looks like this. We call this internally, we call it the disambiguation view, which is a lot of syllables, but basically it's just the view that shows up. And it's essentially ForeFlight asking you, hey, here's all the things nearby where you tapped your finger. Which of these things did you mean? What are you interested in nearby this location? And you'll see at the top of the screen, there's just the regular latitude, longitude for that point. It's also followed by the elevation, the field elevation that you tapped on as well, which is pretty convenient. But this format for latitude and longitude is customizable. If you select the More option here, there's a relatively new option in ForeFlight we call Copy. And when you select Copy, you now get a bunch of different formats that you can copy latitude and longitude in. Some of these you might be familiar with, some you might not. MGRS, UTM might not be you might not be familiar with those formats. But as I mentioned, when we first started chatting, ForeFlight is used by a lot of different types of pilots today, internationally, domestically, commercial, government, defense. And so there's a lot of different formats that are used in flight planning systems, flight management systems. And so we're trying to support as many of those formats as we can. And so you can see all those different formats here. You can change the default format, the format that shows up first at that top level of the screen. You can change that format in settings. So if you select settings, units, and time coordinates at the bottom of the screen, you'll get a little view that looks like this. And these are all the formats that are available. And you can select a different format, and that format will become your default that you always see whenever you tap on a location on the map. The other thing we announced in this January release was expanded runway analysis support. So ForeFlight can do takeoff and landing calculations. It can do engine out procedures. It can do a whole bunch of stuff for both piston aircraft, turbine aircraft, multi-engine aircraft, high-performance aircraft. We added, in the January release, we added performance profile data for runway analysis for the Honda Jet series of aircraft, as well as the Kodiak series of aircraft. So if you're lucky enough to fly either of those two incredible series of aircraft, you can now do all of your takeoff and landing calculations directly in ForeFlight Mobile. All right, moving right on to February, a couple cool new things in the February release. The first is what we call the MORA Grid Overlay. MORA, M-O-R-A. If you're not familiar with that acronym, it stands for Minimum Off-Route Altitude. And it essentially provides pilots a quick way to understand the minimum altitude that's required to safely clear terrain or obstacles in a given area. So it's a grid that overlays across the whole globe. And initially, each section of the grid is 5 degrees by 5 degrees. But as you zoom into the map, that changes dynamically, and it condenses down to a 1 degree by 1 degree grid. You might be wondering, why do I care about terrain and obstacles on a 1 degree basis, right? And terrain actually changes quite a bit within the dimensions of 1 degree across the planet. I included this in here because that's just one of my most fun facts. The highest point and the lowest point in the contiguous United States, the lower 48 states, are separated by only 77 nautical miles. So the highest point, Mount Whitney here, is 14,500 feet. And the lowest point, Badwater Basin, is negative 282 feet. That's 77 miles between them. And so terrain is dynamic, and it can change very quickly. And so that's why we have those 1 degree separations for the grid. So in order to look at this MORA grid overlay, it's part of the aeronautical map in ForeFlight. And so if you go to the layer selector in the top left-hand corner of the screen, and you select aeronautical, when you're looking at the aeronautical map, you can customize it using the settings button in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. So I'll select settings, and then I'll select the little triple dot at the bottom. This is more settings. And if I scroll down to the bottom of this screen, there is the grid MORA toggle, and I can turn that on. And when that's enabled, I'm going to see the grid MORA. And when I zoom in, I can see a bunch of grid areas, and you can see they're color-coded. And they're color-coded based on altitude of obstacles and terrain. So areas with obstacles and terrain under 10,000 feet are depicted in green, and areas with obstacles and terrain exceeding 10,000 feet in height are highlighted in red. I also want to call out that the grid MORA incorporates some altitude buffers in these calculations. And so it incorporates an altitude buffer of 1,000 feet for areas that include obstacles or terrain at 6,000 feet or less in altitude, and 2,000 feet buffers for areas that contain obstacles or terrain of 7,000 feet and above. I only call that out because the Gridmora is different from the Aroka, which you may have also heard of. The Aroka is a US only standard, and it maintains a standard 1,000 foot buffer, unless in some specific designated mountainous areas. So the Gridmora is global, and it is standardized across the whole planet. So that's Gridmora. We also introduced student comments for Logbook. If you are a pilot working on a rating, or a qualification, or maybe you're a flight instructor, using the ForeFlight Logbook is a great way to reduce paperwork and make flight training a lot easier and simpler. And we introduced some new student comments for Logbook entries into this release. So as a student, I can request a review and signature from my flight instructor for a given flight. And in this request, I can add comments. So I can say the specific things that we accomplished and any feedback that I need from my instructor for this endorsement. And then the instructor, when they're signing this endorsement, they can actually add comments as well. And so you can have sort of a person-to-person communication here between the student and their comments and the instructor and their comments on a specific entry, which is really handy. And that all gets saved and stored in ForeFlight Logbook, which is all automatically synced to all your devices and backed up to the ForeFlight cloud as well. We've also been working on some new alerting capabilities. That's something we're really focused on this year, actually, is proactive information, giving pilots information right before they realize they need it. And so we've been focusing on some of our alerting technology, and we've added aircraft on same runway alerts. So if you are taking off or landing on a runway, you will receive, when you taxi onto that runway, an alert that if there is an ADS-B source connected and there's a traffic target on that runway, it'll let you know right on the screen. If you're connected to a Bluetooth headset and you've connected your Bluetooth headset to ForeFlight Mobile, you will hear that alert in your headset as well, which is really handy. I want to highlight how these alerts work, and they're totally customizable, all of them in ForeFlight. If you go to the More tab, and it'll open up this little drawer here, the More menu, and you can select Settings in the top right-hand corner. And here's all the settings in the app. And if you scroll down in this view towards the bottom, there's an Alerts section. And you can tap into alerts, and you can turn on and off all the different types of alerts that are available. You'll see Speak All Alerts as the toggle at the top, so you can turn that on or off if you don't want to hear the alert spoken into your headset. This new alert, though, if you scroll down in this view, is towards the bottom there, traffic on runway alerts, and you can turn it on and off there. All alerts are on by default, but of course you can go in and customize this as per your preferences. So just immediately after that release in February, we released a new app on a new platform for the first time in a long time, and it's called ForeFlight Voyager. And we've been getting a lot of questions. What is this, and why are you doing this, and who is this for? And the truth is that the only thing we're about, like the only thing we think about all the time, is how we make planning and flying safer and easier through great software. And we think, and we know based on feedback we've gotten from some of the 3D features in ForeFlight Mobile, that 3D visualization can improve situational awareness. And so because of that, when we saw Apple's Vision Pro come on the market and we saw the potential for this technology, not even just in its current form factor, but where it's going, right? Where the industry is going, we knew we needed to see what this hardware could do. And so we started working on an idea for an application, and we call it Voyager. Voyager is not an in-flight application. It's an at-home app. And it's sort of a test bed for us. It's a way to try out some of these new augmented reality features, get feedback, think about how we might be able to take these features and make them more useful in a planning or a flying context in the future. It's a free app as well. If you have a Vision Pro, you can download it. There's no additional cost. You don't even have to be a current ForeFlight subscriber to use it. So this is what it looks like. There is a 3D disc, which represents an airport, any airport. You can pull up any airport you like. And we'll show you live traffic, landing and departing at that airport, as well as some at-a-glance airport information, weather information, sunrise, sunset times. You can open up the ForeFlight app and have it in 3D with you in your space as like a ForeFlight iPad window next to the Voyager app. It's pretty cool. It's all totally interactive and immersive. So you can take 2 fingers and pinch and zoom around or rotate the disc around to see different angles of the airport. All the terrain is represented accurately in 3D. We took it a step further in that we built in an airport library into it. And for each of the airports that are available in the app, you can tune directly to the air traffic control frequencies. So you can go to any airport, pull up the air traffic control icon, and listen live to tower or ground or approach or wherever you want to listen to. It's a really cool experience, quite immersive to see someone call up approach in 3D in your living room, and then see that aircraft make that approach right in front of you on your coffee table. It's quite something, I have to say. So we're going to be adding a lot to Vision Pro, to the Voyager app on Vision Pro as time goes on. Better visuals, different types of visualizations. The latest version of the Voyager app adds aircraft information. So if you see an aircraft taking off or landing that you've never seen before, you want to learn more on it, you can just look at it, tap on it, and you'll get all the information on that specific aircraft type. And then you can also use Voyager with other people, with other users in 3D through a system Apple calls SharePlay. As long as both people have the app installed in their Vision Pro, you can see all the aircraft, the airport, as well as each other in 3D in the same space. So that is the Voyager app for Vision Pro. We're pretty excited about it, and we're going to continue to invest in this technology and see where it takes us as time goes on. So let's move on to March, the March release, ForeFlight Mobile 16.3. We introduced what we call the aeronautical map drawer in this release. This is that map settings button I was showing you earlier. I wanted to show you how to access that again. If you go to, let's see here. My iPad screen has frozen. So, we'll come back to that. Well, I'll hook up the live demo at the end. We'll take a look at the aeronautical map drawer at the end. Let me show you power lines, another piece of data we added to the aeronautical map. If you open up the settings menu and scroll down a little bit to cultural elements, we now have power lines as an option. So we've taken in the global database of power lines, and we've integrated those directly into the application. So when you turn those power lines on, you'll see them represented there in that sort of dark brown red color. Super useful for navigation, or we have a lot of customers who do pipeline surveys, and this was a big request for them as well. It makes their lives a lot easier. We also added a basic navlog template in this release. So if you've ever gotten a briefing in ForeFlight, you do that in the flights view. You can also generate a static navlog in this view by selecting the navlog, and you get this really dense, information-packed document with a ton of information in it. You'll see at the top there, it says new basic navlog template. We've added a new format for the navlog, so you can change the format. We had a lot of requests from pilots who wanted something that was a little less cluttered, a little bit easier to write on. And so we added a more basic template. And so you can go up to settings and select basic. And when you do that, your navlog has a little more breathing room. Information's organized a little bit differently here. It's a little bit easier to write in. And it's something that a lot of customers had asked for. So now the format of your navlog is customizable in the app, which is great. Also in this release, some features are not necessarily like user-facing, right? Like there are improvements we make sort of behind the scenes or in the application code that just improves how something works. It may not have a button associated with it or anything like that, but it's just something that makes your life a little bit easier. We built in Sentry and cellular data support. And what do I mean by this? Well, if you're familiar with Sentry, it's our hardware line of ADS-B devices. Of course, Sentry does a lot more than just ADS-B. It has a dual band WAAS GPS in it. It has a carbon monoxide sensor, it has a pressure altitude sensor, a G meter. It's a lot of things packed into a little white box. But Sentry communicates with ADS-B towers, right? Well, before we had portable ADS-B, the only option for getting any sort of data really on your iPad in flight was using cellular, right? And so if you were flying low enough and you were lucky enough to have cellular reception, you could pick up weather information, et cetera, over cellular. But then we added ADS-B. And what happens prior to this release, what would happen would be you have a cellular iPad, you're getting some information, you turn on your ADS-B device, your Sentry device, and now all that information is coming over Sentry, but a bunch of other information is now no longer available because the iPad is deferring to the Sentry for everything, right? It's made the Sentry the primary source of data. And so you wouldn't be able to get a bunch of other information simultaneously that you would normally get over cell. We fixed that in the latest in this version of ForeFlight. You can now access the ADS-B network through Sentry as well as the cellular network through your iPad simultaneously. And so you can see weather sources, multiple weather sources for radar, for example, simultaneously. You can switch between them in flight. Now both Sentry and your cell receiver will work together and talk to the iPad simultaneously, which is really handy. In the April release, ForeFlight Mobile 16.4, we brought back lowest tilt radar. ForeFlight used to have a lowest tilt radar option. Our provider discontinued it, unfortunately, which was a real bummer for us because lowest tilt was really handy. I used it all the time. I know a lot of people used it all the time. And so we built up a team to go and build basically a pipeline, a software pipeline to consume the raw NexRad data from all the NexRad stations all across the country and build out our own lowest tilt radar map layer. So for those who aren't familiar with what lowest tilt radar means, just a really quick overview. Here's a NexRad station. The NexRad station, when it sends out a beam to scan the sky, it sends it out in 360 degrees. And that beam, when it goes around the station to scan the sky, it actually goes up and down. They send a beam out from roughly 0.5 degrees. And they spin around and they go up a little bit and they spin around and they go all the way up to 19.5 degrees. Each NexRad station is tuned based on like local elevation and things that are in that area. But most NexRad stations scan roughly these angles. The lowest angle we call lowest tilt. So if that 0.5 degree beam went out and hit some precipitation and was reflected back, we would call that the lowest tilt reflectivity, the stuff that was returned at the lowest tilt angle. Composite, which you've probably heard of before as well, composite is essentially the worst reflectivity that was returned across all these different angles of elevation. And so as an example, here's an airport, here's an air traffic control tower, and let's say there's a storm moving over this airport, okay? And we have a NexRad station nearby, and it's scanning the sky, and it's scanning all up and down vertically above this airport. Well, as we know, precipitation intensity varies with altitude, right? So you might have some light rain on the surface, but you might have some much stronger precipitation higher up, or vice versa. As an example, this NexRad station could return something like this, right? It could return some light precipitation towards the bottom of this cell and the top, but it could return some heavier precipitation towards the center, the vertical center of this storm. Well, if you're looking at lowest tilt radar in ForeFlight, you're going to see the stuff that's at the bottom, the stuff that's hitting closest to the ground. And so the lowest tilt layer is going to show you green above this airport. But if you turn on composite, you're going to see this magenta in this area. So it's really great to have both of these options, right? Because if you want to figure out what the surface conditions are like, what type of precipitation intensity is hitting the ground, that's lowest tilt. That's why it's so useful. But if we're flying and we want to see what the worst case of precipitation is en route in any given area, that's where composite is super useful. And that's why ADS-B radar, for example, is composite only. Lowest tilt is only available over the internet. To give you an example of what this looks like visually, the difference here. So in this example, I have our composite radar enabled. And in this example here, I have lowest tilt. And so you can see there's a lot of precipitation. I'll go back and forth here a little bit. There's a lot of precipitation in the atmosphere that's not making it to the ground, that was picked up across all those angles of sweep, but wasn't picked up by the lowest tilt angle of sweep. So that's a little bit on radar and lowest tilt, and we're super excited to have lowest tilt back in the app today. All right, speaking of weather, turbulence. Turbulence is, you've probably seen in the news, turbulence is becoming, seems like more and more of an issue over time. And we want to make sure that everyone using our product is as aware as possible of turbulence along the route ahead of them. And we want people to have options. We want people to know what's ahead and think ahead about what they want to do to avoid turbulence if they need to. I mentioned we have our Sentry line of hardware. One of the cool things about the Sentry device is it has an accelerometer in it. And that means we can detect bumps. And so we were thinking about, we have a lot of these devices flying with pilots all over the world now, really. Wouldn't it be cool if we could use those accelerometers to build up a real-time map of where the turbulence is? And so we built that, and we call it reported turbulence. And I have my demo app here running, and I'd like to show you what this looks like. Uh, let's see, Brian, can you see that? See me moving the screen or no?
No, it appears to be frozen. It looks like it's still.
All right, give
You
me
see
one
your
second.
mouse moving though.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. Let me try a different
Time's up.
option.
If need be, we can try sharing a screen and you talk us through it if you want to try that.
Yeah, I've got my iPad screen right here with me.
Okay. I'm sure it's Zoom's fault.
Yeah.
When all else fails, we can always blame Zoom. They're not here.
Oh, you never know.
I'd really love to show this to y'all because it's let's see. All right, here we go. So I'm going to share my iPad this way, and this should do it. All right, got my iPad now?
Yes, we got it.
Yes.
Great. All right. Sorry for the delay, everyone, but it was worth it because this is a super cool feature, and I'm really excited about it. So, reported turbulence, right? Real-time display of live turbulence going on, not a forecast, an observation, real turbulence. So, I'll go up into the layer selector, and I'll select reported turbulence. And when I do that, you can see I get all these dots all along the screen here. And I can move up and down in altitude to see where the turbulence reports are. These are real reports from real Sentry devices that we're flying. And I can zoom in, I can see the intensity of a given report. I can tap on it to get information on it, what the intensity of that report was, what type of aircraft reported it, et cetera. One of the really nice things about this is I can, one, select different altitudes to look at laterally, just on the map. But if I have a route planned, for example, Florida was pretty bumpy today, I can go into the profile view and I can see these reports plotted out in the vertical dimension along my route. And so I can choose an altitude based on these reports if I want to get over these bumps or not. So this is reported turbulence. It's available for anyone who's bought a Sentry and has a Sentry device and they have a Pro or Performance ForeFlight subscription. They get reports up to 14,000 feet, and then it's available as an add-on for anyone else that you can get through ForeFlight.com. Something we're super excited about, and this sort of thing, utilizing all the data that's available is something we're going to focus on a lot moving forward. And the ForeFlight customer base is larger than it's ever been, and so there's a lot of interesting things we can do with the types of flying that our customers are doing, and cater the app more to the types of flying they're doing. And showing them turbulence is one step on that way. Let me switch back to my presentation here.
Hey, while you're doing that, Ryan, I noticed I selected reported turbulence and it asked if I wanted to try it free for 7 days. Or
Yep. Do you have a Sentry Plus device?
I do have a Sentry Plus. I'm not connected to it right now.
Yeah, so all you need to do is go onto ForeFlight.com and register your Sentry Plus, and then it'll be included in your subscription.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. So back to the May release. This one came out in May. Wake turbulence alerts. Again, going back to being proactive with different types of data and alerting. We've implemented wake turbulence alerts in the application. So when you're connected to an ADS-BN source like a Sentry, you'll start getting wake turbulence alerts for different types of traffic. So ForeFlight is basically building up a 3D trajectory of your aircraft's trajectory in space. And it also knows the trajectory of other traffic that you're receiving over Sentry. And we know the type of aircraft over ADS-B, and we know your type of aircraft. And so we can actually draw out a wake turbulence alert for you. So the green area, well, actually, let me start at the top. You'll see the alert here. We can see that this is a heavy aircraft and how far ahead of us it is. We can see the aircraft's position on the map, its altitude relative to us, as well as its tail number. The green portion is the safe area that we would want to cross this wake in, based on our trajectory and the aircraft's trajectory. And the red area is where we would want to stay out. That's an area where we're likely to hit the wake from that aircraft as we're crossing its path. So that's something we're super excited about. The yellow stripe, or the white stripe, I should say, is the projected crossing path, right? So based on your trajectory, where the application thinks you'll be crossing this wake, and you'll see that move and change as you approach the wake of the aircraft. And of course, if you get really close to the aircraft, it'll start lighting up a little brighter on your screen, just to alert you to that.
Hey, Ryan, quick question on that. I was looking that up in the manual and it said it's inhibited below 500 feet.
Correct.
I'm just wondering why.
Yeah, it's inhibited below 500 feet for a couple reasons. There was a lot of discussion internally about that, and it's something we're still thinking about. But one of it was in regards to just the pattern and how the algorithm is handling different types of trajectories within the pattern environment, and a few other considerations. So it's currently disabled below 500 now, but we're open to feedback, and if people think it would be useful below that altitude, then let us know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested in that feedback as well. I know that's where it's most dangerous, but I could also understand some maybe liability issues that you could have with that. But thank you.
All right, moving right along here. VFR charts for the Middle East and South Africa. I'll spend 2 seconds on this, but if you are flying in the Middle East or in South Africa and you're flying VFR, we now have charts for you in ForeFlight Mobile. And so you can add those to your account on foreflight.com. We've been expanding globally quite quickly, and we're adding new chart coverages to all different sorts of regions outside of the US on basically a quarterly basis right now. So stay tuned for more international location support in the future. And then in June, the latest release, ForeFlight Mobile 16.6. Couple really fun things in this one. The first is letters to airmen. The FAA publishes letters to airmen on their website, and we have started pulling those into ForeFlight Mobile. If you go to an airport in the US and go to the procedures section under the airport category, if there are any LTAs that have been published for a given airport, you'll see them here. We're including these because there's some genuinely useful, important things to know if you're flying into a given area that's included in these LTA publications. I'll open one up here just by tapping on it. This one is just a VFR departure conflict notice. A lot of high performance aircraft inbound to Austin these days, and so the FAA wanted to publish some information about departure conflicts for that airport. So the FAA has published a lot of different types of content and has continued to publish new types of content. And so we're evaluating each new type of thing they publish, and does it make sense to put it into the app? And for this one, it absolutely did. So we included it. Airport comment summaries, AI airport comment summaries. So if you are familiar with comments, that's the comments section on an airport. You can see what different ForeFlight users are saying about an airport or a given FBO or anything that might be useful to know when flying into or out of a given airport. You can add your own comments using the plus button at the top of the screen. But in the latest version of ForeFlight, we're using some large language models to just summarize these comments, right? So a lot of airports have many, many comments. And just as a quick summary at the top, we're using an LLM to summarize what people are saying overall about that airport. And you can quickly scan that at the top of the comments view and just get an overall sense of what's going on at that airport based on what real people have said. We also introduced a new tab in ForeFlight Mobile. We don't introduce new tabs very often, but we're thinking about ways we can better serve our customers and better serve the aviation community. And there's a lot of different types of information that maybe aren't specific to flight planning, but that are still useful to know. User-generated content, community content. And so we've added a new tab to the application we call Discover. And one of the biggest parts of this new tab is we've included aviation events, aviation community events. We've worked with the great folks at EAA and AOPA to build their event calendars directly into ForeFlight Mobile. And so when you open up this new Discover tab, if you don't see it in your tab bar, just go into the More menu and scroll down. You'll see Discover there. And all those EAA and AOPA events are now built directly into the application. And you can see them all on the map as well as in a list view. You can tap on the filters to filter by dates that you're interested in attending an event or the type of event you're interested in. And all you need to do to look at a specific event is to tap on it on the map or in the list, and it'll open up a detailed view for this event. In this case, we're looking at AirVenture coming up soon. For each event, you'll get a summary of what that event is about, when it starts and ends, where it's located. If you scroll down a little bit, the format. So this supports both in-person and online events. Some are in-person only, some are online like this one, some are both. And so we support both those formats, the cost, who the best contact person is, and then registration and event website information. You can also tap on the photos. Sometimes people will include a photo with their event, either just a generic photo, or sometimes they'll attach like the actual flyer with important information about the event. And so you can just tap on the photo and you'll see it in full screen. You can zoom on it to get more information. So these events, again, we worked with EAA and AOPA to build these events into the app. And so a common question we're getting is, well, how do I have an upcoming event that I would like to be to show up in ForeFlight Mobile? How do I get it to show up? And you can go to either of these event websites, the EAA event website or the AOPA event website. And as long as you've added your event to that website, it'll show up within ForeFlight Mobile within 24 hours. So we're pulling those events from them directly, and it takes about 24 hours to show up. And the nice thing about these events too is they're available offline. So if you've got a long cruise and you're just wondering what's going on, what aviation events are going around beneath you or near your destination, you can pull this up offline. As long as it downloaded the database ahead of time, you'll have it offline to browse, which is really cool. Lots more coming, by the way. EAA and AOPA, awesome to work with, and we're really excited to get them on board with this, but we're working on adding a lot more different places and sources of events long-term as well. Integrated video education as well. You might be familiar with our video library, foreflight.com/videos. We've integrated all of those videos directly into the application now. So again, that's under the Discover tab. After events, there's education. And so we've organized them into a couple different categories: getting started, flight planning, maps and charts. And for each of these categories, we have different playlists for different topics, and you can tap on a playlist to open it up. And then you can tap on a video in a playlist to play it in full screen, which is really great. A lot more coming soon to the Discover tab. There's a tremendous amount of really great aviation community content we want to include in Discover over the long term. And so stay tuned for more on that. But speaking of coming soon, I thought I would wrap up this evening with giving you a little sneak peek of some things that we've never shown publicly before, actually. So this is a world first here on ForeFlight Workshops. I wanted to show you two things that we're working on. Both of these things will be coming out after Oshkosh, not before. We try not to release an app update right before Oshkosh, just because we don't want people flying with stuff they're unfamiliar with, brand new stuff going into a major event like Oshkosh. So this stuff will be coming out just after the show, but this is the first time we're talking about it. So that's kind of cool. First one is Aviation Keyboard. So in ForeFlight Mobile, whenever you're entering a route or entering something in a logbook, etc., and you tap on a field and you get a keyboard like this, right? This is the default iOS keyboard, the default keyboard for an iPad or for an iPhone. You'll notice on the right-hand side there above the keyboard, there's a new option, Aviation Keyboard. We've been working on a custom keyboard. iOS supports custom keyboards now for different apps, and we've been working on a custom keyboard that we think will make entering information in ForeFlight a little bit easier, a little bit more intuitive. If you select Aviation Keyboard, your keyboard will switch to the Aviation Keyboard. It looks quite similar at first glance, but there's some important differences. You'll notice that the numerals, the numbers at the top are now included, so you don't have to switch to the separate numbers keyboard for 1 through 9 or 0 through 9. It defaults to all uppercase. The cardinal direction keys are underlined, highlighted. You'll also notice at the bottom of the screen, there's a number pad. It says 1, 2, 3. If I select that, this is where it gets really interesting. Now we have a dedicated number pad with positive and negative symbology, degree symbology, feet, inches, cardinal directions. And you'll notice it's all sort of slid to the right. We've noticed in some of our user testing that people put their iPad in all different types of places. And so we wanted to make sure that the Aviation Keyboard could cater to right-handed versus left-handed, or if you put it to the right or the left. And so you can actually select this little keyboard with the arrow next to it, and you can swap the position to the left or the right, back or forth, depending on whatever your preference is. This also supports a floating mode. And so this is where it gets real fancy. You can actually take the keyboard and you can put it in a little floating container on any window, and you can actually put the keyboard wherever you want on your screen. That's a feature that a lot of people had asked for, is just the ability to kind of custom position the keyboard. And so we're including that as well, which we're really excited about. So that's Aviation Keyboard coming out in the future after Oshkosh. And finally, we'll wrap up with profile enhancements. So here's our flight plan drawer in ForeFlight Mobile. This is a revised version, though. This isn't out yet. This is a slightly tweaked version. This version is adjustable. You'll notice there is a little grabber at the bottom of the flight plan drawer, and I can tap on that and I can drag down, and I can make this flight plan drawer as big or as small as I want. Now, in this case, I have a pretty short route in there, and so there's not a lot of content taking up space. However, if I switch to, for example, my nav log, you can see, for a longer route, having a lot more vertical space to scan your nav log is something that a lot of people have asked for. And so you now have a lot more room for your nav log. We've also made a lot better use of the profile view with our adjustable flight plan drawer. When I'm in the profile view, I can make this much taller now. And we've added 2 new layers to the profile view. If I go up to the top layer selector for profile, I can select that. Right now I have airspace on, but down at the bottom, there are 2 new, if my keynote's going to freeze, there we go. I have 2 new options. The first one is called headwind and tailwind. So if I select headwind and tailwind, based on the latest winds aloft forecast, I can see what my estimated headwind and tailwind will be at all the altitudes vertically along my route, which is really, really handy. And in addition to that, we want to take it one step further. It's like, well, okay, it's good to know headwind and tailwind, but what I really care about is ground speed, right? Like, how is this headwind or tailwind change going to affect my time and route, right? And so I can actually go back up into this layer selector, and I can select estimated ground speed. And based on the current forecast headwind or tailwind across all altitudes along your route, and based on your aircraft's performance, will automatically give you the estimated ground speeds at all the altitudes along your route for every waypoint. And they're color-coded, of course, based on how beneficial they are speed-wise or not. And I just want to highlight, a lot of people don't know this, you can adjust your altitude in the profile view. So you can tap and drag on that altitude slider and move that up or down and see how your performance calculations would change if you were to change your cruising altitude. Okay, I know that was a lot. That was a bit of a whirlwind. Everything we just talked about, except for the new stuff, keep that, that's a secret. Don't tell anyone. All the stuff we talked about, foreflight.com/releases. We have a page that goes through all the stuff in every single release, and that's the best place to dig into more information about everything you saw today. And with that, I hope we have a little bit of time for questions, Brian, hopefully.
Well, we
Yes, we'll
certainly
take
have
the time to do
questions,
that.
whether
I'm
we
just
have
sitting
time or
here
not.
I'm in awe. I'm just when I thought ForeFlight, what could they possibly do to make it better? You guys are showing some features that I'm in awe. I constantly am in awe, and very impressed with what you guys are constantly coming up with, the improvements you're making. And there are some very fantastic ones that we got a sneak preview of there. So, Mike, did you gather some questions?
I did have a couple of questions. Ryan, you were talking about that using that Sentry Plus to gather the turbulence data, which then, when you get within cell data range, is transmitted and then redistributed. Do you have a feel for how many ForeFlight users have a ForeFlight Sentry and are able to provide this data to the rest of us?
It's a lot. I can't give you the specific device counts on Sentry right now. I can tell you that of pilots who are flying with an iPad in the United States, about 80%, or 8 out of 10 of them, are flying with ForeFlight.
Wow.
And of pilots who are flying with ForeFlight, a significant portion of them are flying with the Sentry device. So we're talking thousands to tens of thousands of reports on the map.
Yeah, that's awesome. And of course, the more people that get that, the more complete the picture becomes for the next person coming along that same route to get some idea of that turbulence.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So earlier we were talking about track logs and using track logs as a debriefing tool and so forth. And I've been a very happy Cloud Ahoy customer for a long time, maybe almost 10 years now. And I know that Jeppesen or Boeing bought Cloud Ahoy. What sort of, can you talk anything about the sort of integrations that you're looking for between Cloud Ahoy flight analysis and the track logs available in ForeFlight?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So ForeFlight itself acquired Cloud Ahoy in April of last year. And we've known the folks at Cloud Ahoy, Chuck and Tani, and the rest of the incredible team there for many, many years. And we're always so impressed with what they were building, right? Like ForeFlight, we believe that making things easier makes pilots do them more often. And so, for example, making a briefing one tap on your iPhone, right? Everyone should now get a briefing, right? You got to, it's so easy, right? We have that same vision for debriefing. If everyone's getting a briefing on a flight, everyone should debrief their flight, right? That's how they do it in the military. That's how, there's a lot of incredibly good hard science and research on the importance of debriefing flights. And so what we're thinking about is, okay, how do we make it easy? How do we make it obvious, right? And potentially automatic. And so what the team is doing now is the Cloud Ahoy team and the ForeFlight team are working together on ways that we might be able to bring some of that Cloud Ahoy technology to ForeFlight, integrate it in a more seamless way, a more automatic way, and build it in as part of a pilot's existing ForeFlight workflow. So nothing to announce yet in regards to new debriefing tools, but I can tell you the team is hard at work on some really cool, interesting ideas, and we'll have more to share on that soon.
Any idea what you mean by soon? Are we talking this year or next year?
I can't give you a timeline on that,
Man,
unfortunately.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I want all this stuff yesterday.
I apologize. Yeah. Well, we will have some cool stuff to announce this year.
Okay, awesome. We talked a little bit about nav logs, and one persistent question I've seen quite often is a pilot will create a flight plan for a flight and they'll generate a nav log out of that, but it's based on whatever the winds are forecast for today. What's the easiest way for a pilot to get a nav log with no wind consideration at all?
Do you want like a zero win nav log?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I do know beyond a certain time range, we default to historical wins, and then beyond another time range, I believe we default to zero wins, but I don't off the top of my head know what the specific time range is to set for that nav log.
Okay.
I will have to follow up with you on that one.
It'd be kind of nice if there was a checkbox to say do wind calculations or don't do them.
Right. Yeah. Totally. That's a good idea.
And let's see, I had a bunch of questions here about logbooks, but the fact is we're going to plan a future program that's going to focus on the logbook. We really haven't spent much time on that. We got a ton of questions about, especially for student pilots, trying to check all the boxes for their qualifications for a check ride. That's one thing. How do you combine them? How do you store track logs with them? That's
And
going
then
to be a
there's
future.
part 61 versus 141 with the logbooks and the requirements, and then we'll get into that as well. But also, yeah, we'll do another one. I think it's a separate section for instructors in the logbooks because that's going to be a whole topic on its own, how instructors will use those to give endorsements.
For sure, yeah. One question we did get though on the track logs today, is there a way to delete multiple track logs at one time instead of individually deleting them?
Uh,
Oh, did I get a stumper?
yes. If you go into the track log view, and then at the top of track logs, in the menu in the navigation bar at the top,
Once again, we really appreciate your donations. This is we were going to call it quits after this Zoom workshop. This Zoom membership or subscription expired, and we actually just bought another year of it. We're going to graduate probably to more of the proficient pilot workshop, so we go expand beyond just ForeFlight as well. I love the videos that ForeFlight has put on their Discover tab, because that's a great resource. And the difference between that and this is that we're kind of interactive with you. But I've learned a lot from watching some of those videos already. But we're going to go a little bit longer. Thanks for your donations. Thanks for joining us. The next one will be on August 5th, again, 7 p.m. We look forward to seeing you on that one. So thank you very much, and good night.